Welcome. The whole gang's here from NBA Summer League. Nima joining me after his SBC experience out there. He got to see a large handful of games. You know him as a repeat guest of our show. And also returning here, I believe, as a past Dome Theory guest is Jake Weingarten, who is the creator of Stock Risers, recruiting newsbreaker, and also was down there at Summer League. So welcome, my friends.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So we'll start with that championship game. It was messy. I don't think any of us were actually there for that. Were you still down there, Jake, for that one?
Nah, I actually missed the championship game, but I was watching.
Everyone was gone by then.
Yeah,
It was like the
everyone was
emptiest.
gone.
It was the emptiest crowd of the week, the championship game, and it was a
yeah.
bad one.
Mhm.
I thought when those two teams were going to collide, it was going to be a legitimately awesome game with Davion Mitchell and Peyton Pritchard going at it, and some of the other guys who have just been awesome on both those teams through this whole stretch here. But the Celtics started hot. And then Mitchell threw the clamps on Pritchard. The Celtics turned the ball over like 30 times, and it was the messiest game I've ever seen. But I was impressed by the Celtics. I wasn't sure any of their young guys were going to separate the way they did, but Pritchard showed a lot of things as a scorer. His range was awesome. He hit like a deep three from the left wing in one of the games from like Curry range, shot close to 50% from three, and was a good transition passer. We'll still see how he develops in the half court, but he was an awesome college recruit, Jake. Great player at Oregon, and then he fell pretty far in that draft. I don't know if it was because of height or just transferring from that level to the next level, but as a scorer and as a guy who can make things happen with the ball in his hands, he is really transferred immediately just with his floor skill set into the NBA in such a great way.
Oh, yeah, I agree for sure. And actually, the first game that I went to when I got to Summer League was, I believe, a Celtics game. And, Peyton Pritchard was a double-double threat each time he touched the court. Offensively was where he impressed me the most. His ability to find his shots and get to the rim and his playmaking was at a high rate, and he's doing everything. And then he left, went to a pro-am, scored 92 points, came back, and obviously didn't win the championship. but for him to come back after that, I got to give him his respect. But he was very impressive at Summer League, and each night I did a breakdown and gave my top players of each day that I was able to watch, and I think Peyton Pritchard made my list 2 of 4.5 days or 1 out of 4.5 days, but he was definitely on that list one time.
Are you impressed by any of the Celtics guys out there, Nima? I know you didn't get to catch them too much, but Nesmith, I believe, just missed the all summer league list. He probably should have been on there because he had a strong one too, as a spot up shooter and doing a little off the dribble action too. I always love when some guys at this level are able to show something new into their second years out there. A lot of these guys, this was their first summer league, but it was their second year playing in the NBA. And he was a guy who got going hot late last year. I really wasn't all that impressed by him early in his rookie season. He didn't look like a fluid, pure shooter when he first got into the league. His release was just a little slow to me, and he kind of looked sporadic all over the court. And he really started becoming this guy who was more of a crash and banger on the boards and stuff than a pure shooter. But he came out and hit like well over 40% of his threes to start this, got to the in-between range, and looked like a guy who's going to really be able to play on the Celtics next year.
Yeah, I liked Aaron Nesmith a good amount. He had that one game where he scored like 33 points, and he started off like 11 of 11, 6 of 6 from three. That was a really good game for him. Peyton Pritchard, like y'all just said, like I think he's really coming into his own. I think he's going to be a really solid, like one of the better backup point guards in the league. I think, you guys kind of are slim now in the rotation, and getting Nesmith and Peyton Pritchard to step up and really, win those minutes is going to be big. Nesmith as a shooter, he looks a lot better. But my worry is just whether or not he can go out there and be a good defensive player. Like you said, like he doesn't really go for the boards. He's not a good defensive player. Like it's going to be a little bit difficult. I think I see the comment about Dennis Schroeder and Pritchard. Like I think Pritchard is you could end up seeing him start by the end of the season over Schroeder. I honestly don't
I
know what
agree.
the plan is there. Maybe even Marcus Smart starts at the point guard. But I think there's a world, we could see Pritchard start over
Pritchard as
Schroeder
a starter,
pretty early, I think.
Just for spacing, yeah. I mean, he's legitimately one of the best shooters.
And
in
also,
the league right now.
Go back just historically with Schroeder. Look at what he did in OKC coming off the bench. I think he's much better suited as a sixth man than he is as a facilitator out there for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, where I think Pritchard can really play next to those guys at a high level.
Especially
it's just about whether or not you can, kind of get him to play hard all the time. It's not that he doesn't, but it's just it's going to be hard to get him to play like a starter.
So defense
for starter minutes.
You're so right about defense. It's so hard to judge defense in the summer league, where everybody's at defensively, because no one's connected.
And also nobody really cares. A lot of those players don't care. You're in Vegas. You
can tell that a lot of the guys that have already had league experience just didn't really care compared to the rookies. I felt like, there were some guys that are vets or they've been in the league that really wanted to prove themselves, but the rookies just balled out. I mean, you could name a rookie on pretty much every single team that balled out. Obviously, it's summer league, but it was evident. I mean, the rookies wanted it a lot more than some of those returning guys, in my opinion. That might be
I would agree with that. And summer league's all about buckets. It's all about getting your own. Like Josh Christopher, for example, the Rockets.
Oh, we're already going to the Rockets.
No, but I'm just not already. But he was playing point guard a lot, and he didn't even need to be doing that. He just had the ball in his hand a lot because it's summer league, man. It's not about making the right pass. It's not about.
So one of my favorite plays of summer league.
The ball around. It's about scoring, and so.
One of my favorite plays I'll follow you there, Nima. One of my favorite plays of summer league was Josh Christopher getting a rebound and flipping the ball over his head, trying to find someone no look in transition, and it just went right to the other team. He struggled. He struggled a little bit shooting, playmaking. I know in that game, Tremont Waters, who's one of the guys I loved in Boston, pulled him aside, talked to him for a little bit just about how to handle a 2-for-1. It was a tough stretch out there for him.
Tremont Waters wasn't the best either in Houston. He didn't have a great game.
So what was your gauge of Christopher, Nima?
He was asked to do a lot. He was asked to do a lot. We didn't have a point guard on that team. I think the only true point guard we had was Trey Phils. It helped a little bit when Armani came back, but he was in COVID protocol for the first 4 games. He basically was playing the point the entire time. There was a quote that came out from Rafael Stone in the middle of summer league where he was like, "I think that Josh Christopher can be the next Drew Holiday," which is an interesting comp, but. I mean, they were having him, play the point guard and then pick up the ball handler on the other end. He was being asked to do a lot, and he was doing a lot, and he was active the whole time. He wasn't afraid to shoot. He wasn't afraid to get stupid passes off. He wasn't afraid to play over aggressive against the ball handler, and I like that a lot because you're not going to be doing that at the next level. You're going to be playing off of guys like John Wall, Kevin Porter Jr., KJ Martin will have a bigger role, Christian Wood, Daniel Tice even. And so you're going to be playing off these guys a lot who they're going to have the ball in their hands a lot more than you are. The good thing now is we know if Josh Christopher has the ball in his hands, he can make the right move to get himself a shot. He can make the right pass if he needs to. And I think they want to bring him along kind of as this backup point guard / 2 guard. I don't really like it, but he seems like he wants to be comfortable in that role. Silas likes his optional players. That's why Kevin Porter Jr. is turning into a point guard right now anyway. And so having all these secondary playmakers, that's sort of the goal. And I think Josh Christopher proved he can be one of those guys. He's just not a playmaker. That's not his game for me.
You watch Houston a lot, Jake. What stuck out about their guys to you? I mean, Green blew me away. He really was explosive. The way he just came out there and scored and made plays and everything else. And the step back, you're seeing more and more step backs from these guys every year, but his is special.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I think Josh Christopher's best game was with Jalen Green out there. It was earlier on in Summer League. It might have been their second game or second or third, possible. I don't think it was the first. But Josh Christopher was one of the best players on the floor in one of those games, and Jalen Green was in that game as well. With the two of them on the floor, it is very scary for the future. But I've really, my takeaway from Houston was Şengün. I'm
You're
a big
into him,
Şengün
huh?
guy.
You're on the train?
I am definitely on the train. Just
Yes,
his ability to
sir.
handle the ball, he's so crafty. And just his passion for the game was evident. But like I just said, he's real crafty for his size. And, a guy with that frame and physicality, I like to see him get to the rim. And he was definitely doing that in multiple ways. And I'm definitely on the Şengün train. And the young core that Houston has, I think is going to be great. Like you said, Jalen Green blew me away. But for me, that's nothing new. I've seen him play since he was about a sophomore in high school.
Do you think he could be the best guy in this class?
I think it's definitely possible. I'm definitely with Cade at the top, but Jalen Green's upside is ridiculous. And I have no doubt in my mind that he could end up being the best player in this class, which would say a lot because this class is unreal. I think this class has so much talent. But yeah,
So you would know better than me, and I'm trying to remember off the top, but this class more than any other, I felt like actually played out of high school the way, like to a T, more than any other class I can remember. Because these guys at the top, Green, Cade, Mobley, of course, too, like the guys who are really at the top of this class here, Suggs that was a little higher than he actually ended up, but your basic top 5-6 guys here were the top 5-6 guys that coming out of high school, right?
Yeah, and even some guys that dropped a little bit were able to put on. Trey Murphy was a guy who I loved at summer league. That was a guy who I think could easily been a top 10 pick. Sounds crazy, but he did play amazing. But like you said, those guys at the top, Cade, Green, Mobley, Suggs, those guys. Scotty Barnes had several great games that I got to witness. In the last Raptors game I saw, he didn't play too well. He left with an injury during the game, came back and didn't really find his shot or wasn't really able to get to the rim or anything like that. But, these guys at the top are proving why they were at the top. And, James Bouknight, another guy who I absolutely love to watch since he was in high school. But this draft class, once again, is going to be unbelievable. And, yeah, I do think Jalen Green does have a shot at being the best player in the class. It's definitely possible.
I think he's going to be the best player in the class. There are a few guys in the draft class that did slip just coming out of high school. If you look at BJ Boston, he slipped all the way to 51. Josh Christopher, who we just talked about, he was like a top 10, top 11 guy. He got drafted at 24. Day'Ron Sharp was he went into a bad situation at UNC. And then Greg Brown, who again was just at a bad situation at UT, but he was a top 10 player going into college as well. So the top of the top stayed basically the same. I think Kuminga slipped a little bit. I think he was number 4 in ESPN.
Ooh, Kuminga was good out there.
He was.
But he looked amazing in the summer league.
He did summer league the way it's supposed to be. Just go out there,
go and get buckets
on the floor.
Go and get buckets, and that's what he did. He went and got buckets. Same with Jalen Green. I will say that if Jalen Green doesn't look like the best player in this draft, 3 or 4 years from now, he's going to look like an idiot just because of all the shit he's talking. I love it. I think it's great. I just hope that the play backs it up come October.
He had some flashy get-ups on the sideline once he finally sat down. I told you I was in the tunnel with him and Suggs there, and Suggs actually did have a thing on his finger after he got hurt. So I'll be interested to see how hurt he actually is. But Suggs, the shirt, the chains, the pants, he was looking good out there. And the hair, man, his hair is just everywhere.
He was nailing that step-back three, too.
Mm-hmm.
He was nailing that step-back three.
So Kuminga, let's talk Kuminga because I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't have a great feel for his game coming out of his G League camp there because at times he just didn't have the skill set to put it all together. But the burst he has out there and the aggressiveness that he played with and just the risk that he took mostly paid off in this summer league with some of the ways he got to the lane, was able to fly through the air, catch some lobs, do a little bit of everything for this group. But he's a guy more than anyone here. The big question you always ask out of summer is how this is going to translate. Green's obviously going to play a ton and have a lot of freedom in Houston. Cade's going to have a ton of freedom to do stuff in Detroit. I don't know if Kuminga is going to play in Golden State this year, but there is a rawness there and baseline athleticism in that guy's game that makes you dream of him being able to put it all together and really become a star. But I don't know. What are you expecting from him out of year one?
I think that he's gonna. I don't know if he plays, but if he does play, like, it's gonna be great for him with all the space that Golden State can provide, especially if Clay comes back. Especially if Clay comes back and it's like 80% of what Clay was. He doesn't need to be Clay, but if he can still just space the floor and, play decent defense, that's all they really need him to do next year. Kuminga's going to have a lot of space, and Andrew Wiggins just got brought up, but Wiggins was a much better shooter last year too. He shot like 39% from three. I think we might see another leap from Andrew Wiggins as well with Clay on the floor. Like I just said,
good last year, yeah.
And so I think we might be seeing more Moses Moody minutes than Kuminga minutes when it's all said and done by the end of the season. But I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year, Kuminga's actually in that rotation.
The more Moses Moody minutes there are, the bigger problem it's going to be for Kendrick Perkins.
We'll see if he actually watches the games.
Oh, that was one of my favorite clips ever, him trying to pronounce that name, which really isn't that hard of a name. Where you at on Kuminga, Jake?
John Kuminga, one thing I could say, from G League and prior to the G League, his decision-making got a lot better from high school. Obviously, your decision-making is going to get better from high school. But like you guys said, his first step, he was spacing the floor really well, and just his explosiveness. I mean, I saw him get to the rim a few times, and when you're actually sitting center court watching it, it's kind of unreal to see John Kuminga's first step and his burst. Like you guys said, if he does play this year, I think that would be great. I'm a big Kuminga guy. I do think once he does get his minutes, he will get his, and he will prove that, he could be a really good pick in this draft, which I think he was. But like I said, decision-making is a lot better. The G League obviously helped him in multiple ways, and that's obvious if you saw him play prior to the G League. But, yeah, I mean, explosiveness, he was spacing the floor very well, and, he's scoring the ball really well too, and he was very fun to watch at Summer League.
So Nima mentioned Day'Ron Sharpe, and that makes me think of the Nets squad, which I think was probably right up there with the Rockets, Celtics, and even the Warriors with Moody and Kuminga among groups that just had like a bunch of guys out there that were really interesting. And obviously, I think Cam Thomas led the entire Summer League in scoring, I believe, off the top of my head.
Certified bucket. Cam Thomas.
Man.
Been a bucket.
He just goes out there, shoots and scores, and it's so scary to think about him possibly playing right away with Irving, Durant, Harden, those kind of guys who already are just going to unload on teams offensively to begin with. I don't know how a guy like him ends up there. I guess Houston just couldn't spot picks this year, whatever it was. But
if I had to go back, I would probably take him at 24 over Christopher, as much as I love Christopher. But man,
so you guys missed him on the first side, yeah.
Man, he can play.
I was surprised
he can play.
Dropped past 15, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was
so
surprised.
The question with him will be the efficiency, right? Because he's going to shoot a ton. I don't know how efficient he'll be, but
it's the efficiency, the defense, and the play.
Yeah, the defense is my question. Is he going to be able to defend?
The good thing is, one, with the whole defense thing,
I
just point to LSU.
Yeah.
And like the two biggest knocks that I was always being told about Cam Thomas was he doesn't play defense and he's a bad decision maker. And my response to that is how LSU plays. Like
correct.
all three of the guys that came into the draft, you can look at Javonte Smart and Trendon Watford and make the exact same criticisms about those two guys. They don't play defense and they're bad decision makers. And that's because that is what LSU wanted them to do. It was go out there, run the floor as fast as you can. Whoever has the ball, find your own shot. Whether it's a good one or a bad one, find your shot. The good thing is Cam Thomas, he's a tough shot maker. He's a tough shot taker. He's not going to have to take those shots in Brooklyn. I honestly think that he's going to be a per 36 legend next year. Like we could see him play 10 minutes a game, averaging 8 points. And
that's all they really need.
That's not out of the question, especially if James Harden's running the back, or what is it, the bench unit. Yep. If James Harden's running the bench unit and you're running the floor next to James Harden, who's getting doubled every time down the court, you got a wide open look. And if it's not you, one of your teammates has a wide open look. You have a wide open cut. Like, Cam Thomas is going to get a lot of open looks, and if you leave him open, that's a bucket. And so I think that, like, Brooklyn is going to look amazing for him just numbers-wise. Whatever team he's in next, whether it's, Brooklyn post the big three or a different team, that's where we're really going to see whether or not Cam Thomas is Cam Thomas, like what he can really do. I think he's just going to put up amazing numbers in Brooklyn, though. Like he might make an all-rookie first team if he gets the minutes, just because those teams are very, box score based. But he's going to fill up the stat sheet.
Go ahead, Jake.
You mentioned Day'Ron Sharpe, and I'm a huge Cam Thomas guy, so I could easily say he's a certified bucket. I want to question the defense, but I want to talk about Day'Ron Sharpe because he was, in my opinion, one of the best rebounders at Summer League, if not the best.
He fills a real need for Brooklyn.
Yeah, he was a perfect fit for them. And as much as I don't think he should have fell that far, I think it was really good that he did. I think he's going to grab a lot of boards in Brooklyn. I think he's really trying to improve offensively. He's obviously a beast in the paint, but I think he's trying to be much more, especially if you're going to be in a system like Brooklyn, that's, one of the best offensive teams in the league if you look at the core that they have. But like I said, a major need. I mean, rebounding, defense, Day'Ron Sharpe will give you all of that. Physical, aggressive. He was great at Summer League. I watched him one possession. He had 5 offensive rebounds over 3 guys. And that's Day'Ron Sharpe in a nutshell. So I do think he is one of the draft steals. And like I said, perfect need. And, Cam Thomas, also a great fit, obviously, in that offense. But my question is defense. And at Oak Hill, he didn't really play a lot of defense. At LSU, like we were saying, you don't have to play much defense. And he obviously didn't have to play much defense. But I think that was one of the questions on why he dropped was his defense. So if he's able to, improve defensively to go along with his scoring prowess, it's obviously going to be an amazing pick for Brooklyn, which I think it's already filling out to be. So to get Thomas and Sharpe, I mean, that's an impressive draft in itself. And those were 2 of my guys that I really like to watch at Summer League.
And defense isn't necessary all that much in Brooklyn either, the way they played last year. So out of all the possible teams you could end up on, that's probably a good one in that regard, even though I think they're going to have to do it a little bit next year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about the Knicks because I like what they're doing. I like how they're taking a little slow road here. They're spending some money, but they're also doing this a little naturally with some young guys who have a lot of promise here. Quickly, we talked a little bit earlier about how the second-year guys maybe don't show up and go as hard as some of the rookies here because he wasn't at his best. My favorite thing about the Knicks and one of the many things I learned about Summer League is you can foul 10 times because Nima and I were watching a game where Sims went out there with a minute to go at 9 personal fouls.
Yep, I was at that game. Yep, 9 fouls. I looked at the scoreboard, 9 fouls.
Oh, man, that is not going to help you make a team. But
yeah,
he's going to make it, though. He's going to make it because
Miles McBride, he looked good. Obi Toppin, who I love. I mean, he did not get to do a lot last year, but I love a rim runner who can get up there and throw down above the rim, rebound, do the things
was shooting the ball too.
Yes, and he can shoot just enough, I think, with the other things he does to really just be an awesome modern 5. I don't know if he's Clint Capella or Robert Williams like physicality-wise, but he can get downhill and go to the rim and catch lobs, which I think is awesome for offenses. And, they're going to have a guy in Kemba. Derrick Rose is still there. They're going to have better point guard play possibly this year. The bar is pretty low based off last year. But if they have somebody who can set up Toppin for some lobs and play some good pick and roll. And Kemba, if he is healthy, is a really good pick and roll point guard. I love Toppin. I really hope he's a guy who was a little slower as a rookie and has a breakout year now. And the Summer League was a good jumping off point for him.
Yeah, I agree. You said you went through my notes earlier. We were talking. I don't know if you saw any of my Obi Toppin tweets, but the first game where he was going off, I wasn't really saying much about it, and the Knicks faithful let me hear about it. But
I heard it too. I didn't have him on my all Summer League list at first.
Being at those Summer League games and watching Obi Toppin, the first thing I said is, yes, this kid has been in the gym, and it's obvious. better, like I said with Kuminga, better decision making, was shooting the ball, way more confident. Obviously, it's summer league, and there's going to be a little bit of more confidence if you're a guy that has a year under his belt. But like I said, with those returning guys, some of them weren't putting in their best effort. It was really the rookies balling out. But Obi Toppin put on a show. In that last game against Detroit, the Knicks were down 85-69, and he was one of those spark plugs at the end. MJ Walker was locking up on defense there in the final minutes. But Obi Toppin, that comeback in the Knicks-Pistons game is not happening without Obi. He was nailing threes, getting to the rim. Defensively, he played great. And easily for me was one of my top performers at Summer League overall.
My thing with Obi was I think he played really well. And I think he showed that he should be getting more minutes this season. I hope he does. Two things. One, he's not a shooter in the corner.
Yeah.
Not a shooter in the corner.
Those corner threes weren't hitting.
They weren't just not hitting. That's
they weren't hitting at all.
They weren't hitting anything. They were hitting the floor.
Through the air, yeah.
They were hitting the floor 5 feet away from the rim. Corner threes are not his thing. And then if you're going to be an athletic forward, if you're going to be a rim runner, high flyer, play above the rim, you got to run the floor. And he wasn't doing that. He was getting beat down the court a lot. He was playing really well in the half court. And that's where he was getting a lot of his bread and butter, was in the half court. But the way you play, you should be running in transition. You should be a guy in transition. You should be a transition scorer, and he wasn't doing that a lot.
There's got to be a reason Tibbs wasn't playing that much last year, outside the defense.
He's Tibbs. He has his reasons for everything, but he just needs to run the floor more, and you're going to need to do that, with the Knicks this year. You're going to need to run the floor, and you're going to need to, do it effectively. Deuce McBride I really liked. He showed that he's still a really good defensive player.
There we go.
Yep.
We didn't see him lock up Cade the way I wanted him to. I wanted a West Virginia versus Oklahoma State rematch.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get to see much of that, but overall he played really well. We talked about Jericho Sims, and you said, is he going to make a roster because he's extremely foul prone? I think he is, just because –
was that actually a knock on him coming in? That wasn't just a one.
Yeah, no, he's foul prone. He's foul
prone.
He's extremely foul prone.
Oh,
but
that's unbelievable.
He can jump out the gym. He runs the floor. He sets hard screens, and he rolls hard. That's all he needs to do.
He's been working on his post game too.
He doesn't need to do that.
He doesn't need to do it, but he's working on it.
Yeah, every rim runner wants to be more than just a rim runner, but he's gonna he can do his job well. All you have to do is protect the rim, set hard screens, and roll hard, and catch lobs. He can do all four of those things very, very effectively. I think he makes a roster. I think he can get minutes in a couple of years just because of that. We see Clint Capella looking like one of the best centers in the league. Why? Because he does those four things very well, and he can guard the perimeter pretty well too. We'll see if how Jericho Sims does on the perimeter. He did okay in the summer league. He was getting beat every once in a while, but he held his own out there too. So we'll see how he does in the league. Someone we haven't talked about on the Knicks is Quentin Grimes, who started off really poorly and then picked it up real fast by game 3, and by the end he was getting 24, 25 points, shooting 50% from 3 in those games. So Quentin Grimes, I think he's one of the more NBA-ready prospects.
Yeah, he was by far the most can't-miss role player in this draft.
Yeah, and he's a Tibbs guy. He just came out of a year with Kelvin Sampson, 2 years with Kelvin Sampson. Thibodeau is very much the same way, where you listen to me, you do what I say, you do it on both sides of the floor, and you do that, we're going to win. And, it worked out in Houston. They got to the Final Four. And I think, Quentin Grimes is the perfect player for Tibbs. 3-and-D wing. He can hit the right shots. He can pick up the right guys. He can hit, he's a decent passer. That's not much of his game, but he can swing the ball as well as you need him to. He can be that backup 2-3 which they kind of are missing. I mean, you got Alec Burks and you have RJ. Like, that's not the depth you want at those positions, really. You lost Reggie Bullock.
And he can really shoot.
And he can really shoot it. Yeah, that's what you need.
That's pretty
especially
much
with the Knicks
last year. Yeah, they shot a lot of threes to make up for some of their offensive deficiencies, and it worked well. And they played great defense. And they're going to be mixing in some guys who aren't the best defenders next year, like Kemba and Fournier. So having a guy who can really be active on the wing and switch and stuff like that is going to be important for them. I have a lot of other names here I want to throw out. We're obviously not going to get to all of them, but Pat Williams is Pat Williams. We saw what he's capable of to this point. Still, Cade's Cade. I think we all kind of saw what Cade's made of after some solo starts. He had an amazing game pretty much every single game out there. Here's three more. I'll let you guys kind of take who you want here. Jalen Johnson, Luka Garza, Chris Duarte, and everybody's favorite, Bol Bol.
You can go first.
All right, I'll do Jalen Johnson and Bol Bol because I have some things to say about both of them. Jalen Johnson can stuff the stat sheet.
Yes, 20 and 10.
First of all, he can stuff the stat sheet.
I agree.
Sorry. He's gonna be like, I wouldn't be surprised if he's.
So why are people concerned about him? Because he looks really good.
So he can be like a 20, 10, 5, 2, 2 kind of guy. Like if he figures out who he is, that's my biggest problem. I was saying my comp for him is Josh Smith because they play very similarly, and both of them had no idea what they were supposed to be doing on the court 90% of the time. Like, not that he gets lost or anything like that. He just tries. He thinks he's a player he's not sometimes, and that's not who you are right now. That's not who the Hawks want you to be. Some people are saying, "Oh, like I see John Collins." He's not John Collins. Like. He's not John Collins. And if Atlanta tries to turn him into John Collins 2.0, they really screw up his development. Correct. If you try and turn him into John Collins. He needs to like really just tone it down, especially when he has the ball. Like he goes and just tries to do way too much. And then on defense, he gambles way too much. Like at Duke, they forced him to guard the 5 because Matthew Hurt sucks. And we can talk about how Matthew Hurt was just horrible for the Rockets. But Jalen Johnson, like, he doesn't even think he's John Collins. He thinks he's the best player in the draft. He thinks he's, like, the best player. And that's not true. Like, I think he was number 9 on my big board. I like him a lot. He's what's stopping him. Like it's the mentality. If the mentality clicks and he just like learns how to play within an offense and learns how to play within himself, he's set.
So he's
one of the best passers in this draft. And that's not exaggerating it. Like he's genuinely one of the best playmakers in this draft. He's one of the like smartest basketball guys in this draft. He's just not one of the smartest guys in the draft.
So I'm wondering how much
make those click.
I'm wondering how much of the conversation, that's a good assessment of him there. How much of the conversation around him, Jake, do you think is like, oh, you left Duke,
yes.
You left Duke? Is that all it is, really?
That is what a lot of it was, and I don't personally like that. There's still a relationship between him and his teammates at Duke, first of all. But if you're in his shoes and, you have a chance, you're going to take some time off and train and develop, which clearly worked out for him, then I don't know why it's still a knock. It's nobody else's decision but his, and I think it was a great decision for him. He had a lot of time to, polish his game before the draft. And right when I walked to Summer League, first game I saw was the Atlanta Hawks playing, and Jalen Johnson put on a show. And like you guys said, I had him as a top 10 pick as well. And I had a little article and tweet that I released a few weeks ago, or a few weeks prior to the draft, actually, about Jalen Johnson and why his leadership and why his, ability to fit on any team is a question just because of what happened with Duke. And I think all those rumors should be dropped. He's in the NBA now, and he had a great summer league, and he's a professional at the end of the day. So Any concern about leadership or anything like that will obviously reflect on how he does this season and, the feedback after the season. But for me, he's a top 10 pick, and he proved it at Summer League.
So you're a big Duarte guy. I want to hear a little bit about him because I haven't watched a lot of him. Another Oregon guy, played with Pritchard, DR. I love his story. What are you expecting out of him in the league?
Obviously, the questions around him was his age and, being 24 and coming out of this draft, but he was outstanding. I went to a game where he had 19 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 blocks, 3 steals, and a plus 19, and he blew me away. Terrific ball handler, obviously a pure shooter, and he proved it in that game and so on. But, obviously age was the question, and he's a 24-year-old competing at Summer League, but he wasn't the oldest person there. So that's something that means something. But I love Chris Duarte, and, I think he's the guy that the Pacers obviously wanted, and I think, where he landed was perfect for him. I think he's going to score at a high rate in the NBA. His handle's super polished. He's super crafty. He was able to show it. And, I think his ability to lead a team, and it was obvious. And, the question, like I just said, is his age. But for him to come in and be a 24-year-old rookie might also be a positive in the sense where he could be a possible leader right off the bat. And at Summer League, he showed that multiple instances with younger guys on the roster. And, his play on the floor, he was just a standout every time for Indiana. But that 19.7 rebound, 7 assists, 4 block, 3 steal, plus 19 game was one of the best performances I got to watch. He was just flat out dominating, and they took him out in like the third, fourth quarter because, they were up by 25 points.
Nima, give us Bol Bol.
Man, that dude's just tall for no reason. I don't know. Me and him have the same size torso, but his legs go up to my head. I don't like a lot about his game, but he dominated in the Summer League because nobody there can deal with somebody who's 7'3".
Why was he going behind the back in transition every time up the floor?
Because he doesn't. He needs to show that he can dribble for some reason. His shot disgusts me. His wrist comes back to his shoulder every single time, and then it's like the longest follow through ever because he's about like 3 feet of arm. And it just takes forever for that shot to come up, but it goes in sometimes.
It's like a seesaw.
Yeah, exactly.
He is so fun.
He's fun. That's the word for it. Like you said, the same thing with bad teams, how they're fun.
Yeah.
You can say the same thing about some bad players. Carson Edwards is really fun. Bol Bol is really fun.
But yeah, that is the problem. The Nuggets kind of need him, and
he plays like he doesn't care. Like he just doesn't play like he cares, or maybe that's just because he's lugging around 7 feet of energy.
He was on your bad list then, right?
He wasn't even on my bad list. He was just on my what the hell, and that's how I feel every time I watch him. It's like, man, what the hell, first of all, he's still built like a 7 foot tall 16-year-old. There's the thought of he needs to fill out. He still needs to fill out. He still needs to fill out. I think he's 21 now, 22 maybe. Mm-hmm. But he still needs to fill out. He's skinny as all hell. You look at him and you look at Mobley, and when you watch Mobley in person, both of you guys can attest to this. He's skinny.
Very skinny. He's very thin.
Skinny.
I saw.
But then you look at Bol Bol.
From me talking to Kobe Altman before the game, and you could see how skinny this kid is when he puts his arm out to shake somebody's hand. You can see how skinny he is. I could definitely attest to that.
He's super skinny. But then you look at Bol Bol, and this dude's just it's bone and nothing else around it. He needs to put on some weight. He was getting pushed around by 6'8" dudes in the post just because they could, because they had more weight than he does. He needs to put on some weight, and the thing is his legs are so long. You put a little bit of pressure on those hamstrings whenever you're backing him down. You put a little bit of pressure on those legs, and you get him off his line easily. And so until he actually bulks up, I don't see how he plays NBA minutes. But we'll see.
So I'm glad you mentioned Mobley because he actually kind of led off my slight disappointments list. And I actually kind of expected that he was going to fit in this category because, me and you were going back and forth on the Green thing. I actually really love Mobley long term as a guy who's going to turn into kind of like a franchise player just because of the different things he has as a starting point here. But he did really struggle to get deep into the post against a guy like Sengun early on. Use some strength.
Sengun killed
himself. Yeah. When it got physical,
Sengun won that.
When it got physical out there, it got really challenging for Mobley. The one pass I'll give him is that he needed to be set up, and Cleveland didn't really have the guards to set him up. They didn't really have a perimeter player to play a two-man game or some pick and roll with.
I was told Mobley can create his own shot.
He can, but not to the degree where he was going to be able to dominate this setting.
Yeah.
I got to see him with Garland before I make some big determination.
And Sexton.
About him.
Sexton can create for him very well too.
He could, but I'm more interested in Garland at this point in Cleveland.
Can I ask a question for you guys? What did you guys think of Jaden McDaniels? Because he blew me away. I don't know about you guys.
He's a great player.
He's going to be really great at what he does.
Yeah, I just had to ask that because he was one of my standouts, and people were kind of knocking me for it, but I needed to ask that question. But
I love McDaniels. I think he's going to be really solid. I think at the detriment to my guy Jared Vanderbilt, we might see him start in Minnesota not too long from now. I think that he's going to come along very well.
I like both of the McDaniels. I like the one in Charlotte too. Quite a bit. Yeah.
Jalen McDaniels. Yeah, he's not as good in my opinion, but they're both pretty solid. The Charlotte guys were doing pretty well too. Book night after that game where he got clamped up by Davion Mitchell and got a call from Michael Jordan. He came back and started hooping. He was doing really, really well. Sorry, I need to sneeze.
LiAngelo, though.
LiAngelo, man.
I got a lot to say.
Go for it.
I got a lot to say.
People got excited, but it didn't end up being all that well.
I respect what he is doing. I definitely respect it, but I can never picture LiAngelo Ball in an NBA uniform, maybe a G League uniform, but not an NBA uniform. Besides his spot-up shooting off the pick and roll, I really don't know what else he provides. He had some flashy plays here and there, like that tip pass and that half-court buzzer beater that luckily hit the backboard and went in. But I do respect what he was able to do physically with his body during the offseason. And you could obviously, he's hungry to play in the NBA, but that doesn't necessarily mean he can play in the NBA. But like I said, I do respect the effort, although I do think this is kind of a, LaMelo's our franchise player. We got to give his brother a shot. And, he's actually kind of following through in summer league minutes. But now I'm assuming he'll get either a training camp spot or a G League type thing. So, we'll see where it goes from there. But I just can't picture him in the NBA. I really can't.
I think he can make the NBA. I just think not yet. I need him to prove that he can go and kill the G League first. Mm-hmm. And he hasn't played in the G League yet. I need you to go play a G League season.
Yeah, and I agree.
Give meaningful minutes. Lead your team in scoring because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go out there and be a scorer. Go shoot 10 threes a game and hit 4 of them. Show that you are the player you think you are in the G League, at least at the G League level. And then, maybe you can make an NBA roster until you can prove it in another league. Why is the NBA the first league that we're gonna show?
Because of the balls. Because LeVar was rocking up the court there in Vegas. No, but I love that LeVar is able to give him that opportunity and market him the way he has, and give a guy like that a platform that he might not otherwise have at this point. And obviously, whatever he did with Melo and setting up Lonzo, of course, too, worked very well for both of them. Melo is just better than I can ever imagine him being, and I did like him coming in the last year's draft, but I just didn't expect it to be as explosive and awesome as it was that first year. It was great seeing him out there. It's great seeing all the NBA stars at Summer League, and there were a lot more than I expected. Jaylen Brown and Tatum were out there. LeBron and Russell Westbrook took in a game.
The atmosphere was unreal. It was unmatched.
Who'd you run in there, Jake?
Cox Pavilion was like a kind of reminded me of like a Drew League high
Mm-hmm.
school type of vibe, like small gym, but towards like the ending games, like the last few days, Cox Pavilion was popping more than Thomas and Mack was. But it was an unreal atmosphere. I think
They had to beg people. They were at the doors begging people to
unlucky,
go to Thomas and Mack.
very unlucky. LeBron and Russell Westbrook did show up a day after I left, so that is unlucky. But Giannis was there. The stars were out. Trae Young, everybody was there. So I mean, summer league, definitely was a hit. I could definitely say it was a hit.
You get to meet anyone interesting?
I definitely did my networking and go around. But I wouldn't say anyone really stood out. Just the fact that some of these guys were there kind of blew my mind. Giannis being an NBA champion and a Finals MVP now. I wasn't really expecting him to show up to Summer League, but him and his three brothers showed up, and I could attest to this. They were getting up after every time the Bucks scored. They were getting up off of their seats. So the support was there. The energy was there. Not every player was doing that. Trae Young tried to storm the court after Sharif Cooper's buzzer beater. Security didn't allow it. But seeing the guys out there and, supporting their teams, even if some of these guys aren't ever going to be their teammates, it was definitely fun to watch.
You had quite a few buzzer beaters in this one, game winners, games that went down the wire. I think within the first few days, you had a few overtime games. And then when there was an early game, a Heat game that went to a sudden death overtime that
Max
I missed.
Strus.
Yes.
Max Strus.
But then I got to see the Jazz and Mavericks sudden death overtime game. So that was the first sudden death basketball game I've ever seen. I guess it's kind of similar to Elam ending, but not really. One bucket off the tip-off is all it takes to win, and that includes a free throw. And so you had this sequence where the Jazz won the tip-off. They went right down the floor, got to the rim. I think it was Trent Forrest who got fouled inside. So he's going to the free throw line. All he needs is one free throw to win this game. So he misses the first one. I think guys were yelling on the bench. You don't usually hear that in an NBA game, trying to distract the guy. Obviously, the crowd's going crazy in Coxsay, and it really, as Jake described it, was like such a intimate, loud, crazy atmosphere in there. So he misses the first one. Some guy from the Mavericks tries to get in his face, Trent Forrest, and is trying to phase him at the line here. And as Ibuki's right next to him, there's almost a fight that breaks out. Everyone's going nuts in the crowd, and Forrest gets back to the line and hits that second one, wins the game. But what a format, sudden death overtime.
Yeah, I actually kind of like it. It's a little weird.
You got 9 fouls, you got 2-minute overtime,
10 fouls.
Yes.
Yeah, 10 fouls, 2-minute overtimes, 10-minute quarters, sudden death. It was very interesting, but no, I mean like you guys were saying, TNM, that stadium felt like a basketball stadium, where Cox Pavilion felt a lot like a high school gym. And you get kind of that rowdiness of a high school gym in there whenever something cool happens or it gets down to the wire in a game. I think he was talking about how Trae Young was trying to storm the field. I got to see Bam Adebayo right after winning the gold medal. He went and watched Miami play Denver. I was in a picture with John Morant that got spread around.
Should I pull that one?
Yeah, on the Grizzlies Instagram and on BR Kicks. I was talking to my friend Aaron Washington, who is with No Trade Clause. Good website, by the way.
This was one of the great phenomenons we discussed during the week too out there. How many tall people were out there who weren't basketball players? It was I
think a lot of people who are tall just go there to either flex that they're tall and everyone can be like, wow, is he a basketball player? Because there's a lot of other ones around here. Or to just I feel like if I was 6'7", I could just walk into any club in Vegas during summer league time and just say I was a player.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it was.
Something else I realized is tall people aren't nearly as tall as I thought they are. I very rarely am next to 7-footers, but then being next to a bunch of 7-footers at Summer League, I'm like, oh, you're not that tall. When I stood next to Kendrick Perkins, I swear Kendrick Perkins is probably 6'7". There's no way he's 6'10", 6'11". he was not nearly as tall as I thought he was. But like it was really cool. I think like there was a lot of people that were walking by that I was like, I don't know if he plays for someone. Like he doesn't have a familiar face, but maybe he's like number 12 on the summer league team or something. Yeah.
There it is.
I was talking to my friend Aaron Washington.
How did this photo happen again? Can you take me through it?
Yeah. So
why were you that close? Oh, you just went and sat down in Cox?
Nah, one of the guys that the guy that I work for works with a player, and they were doing like they had the reserve seating, and so I went and I sat with him and one of the players that he was working with, and the guy that was sitting next to me, you can see the sleeve over there right next to my arm. His name's Aaron Washington. He actually got cut off, unfortunately. I wish he was in the picture too. Me and him were sitting there talking. He's a member of No Trade Clause, which is a great website for anybody who wants to look at cap sheets or draft capital, or they have a good trade simulator as well. We were sitting there talking, and he just like the camera just comes up to John Morant's face really close, and as we're like looking at conversation, I see the camera there. I'm a little startled. I think I'm smiling under my mask. I don't really remember. But I remember like staring very intently. I remember staring very intently at the camera, and then like not thinking much of it. And then I think that was day 2 of summer league, maybe day 3 of summer league. It was one of the earlier days. I think it was like either Sunday or Monday. I think it was Monday. That was Monday, yeah, because that was right before SBC started. But that picture didn't get like surfaced until like Saturday, and then I started getting tagged in a bunch of people were tagging me in the pictures, and it was on Instagram, it was on Twitter. I thought it was really funny. It was cool. I got to get a picture with John Morant, even though when I was sitting there, I was like, they had people coming up to Jaw and we're like, oh my God, can we like get an autograph or something like that? And they had like Grizzly security people like next to him being like, move on to like little kids. So I got a picture with him without even trying. So that felt cool.
Kind of, the chaos of the fandom definitely overwhelmed when guys were like Ball or LeBron were walking through. And it got up to heights where they were going to need some security out there. But otherwise, I found out this week, there's a lot more we could have done to prepare for some blackjack. They had sheets. And obviously it didn't go.
We'll be better prepared for next year, Bobby. I lost a little too much money.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm playing a little bit on my phone, not for money, just for like fun to see where I went wrong, I'm doing really well. And I have the sheet right in front of me, and obviously I wouldn't have had that at the table, but I'm seeing all this prep.
You could have done it at one of the automated ones.
Oh, I could have, yes. And
pulled your phone out at the automated one
out there. But yeah, the tacos were awesome. I figured out you could eat tacos for breakfast if the diner gets a little too full. And then the heat actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I was sweating a lot, but it was pretty dry. And then at night,
nothing
when the
like
sun
Texas
went down,
heat.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So even though it was 108, I put the sunscreen on. I got the hat. That brings us to our conclusion here. My my viral moment. You had yours. I had mine. This was after Sam Hauser had his big game in the Celtics' third summer league game. If I get knocked out voice-wise, that'll be the show. Sometimes there's some glitchiness with playing videos on here, but this will be our last reel here before we get out of here. My summer league appearance on ESPN.
You get in the sense that you're going for the summer league title here? I mean, we didn't come here to lose, so 3-0 now. Got a couple more games.
Just walking through the background. I love it, Bobby. That was fun, bro. Summer League was fun. Summer League was a fun time. I got to hang out with you a good amount. Lost some money. We went and got tapas. Those tapas were pretty good. They were small and expensive, but
everything was expensive out there. But that's our show, Dome Theory. Hope you enjoyed the coverage from Las Vegas. We'll be out there again next year, Lord willing, because it was a fun week. There was a lot going on, and hopefully when the COVID stuff tamps down a little bit, I don't know. It feels like every single year.
Barring a Lambda variant.
Yeah, every single year we'll have a new pushback and less access. I don't know, man. If the access keeps getting less and less and less because there's more and more COVID every single year, you might see me in a different occupation, but I'll ride it out for a year or two and see where it goes. But Nima, keep an eye on him. He's at Finding Nima 23. He's obviously been a good friend of the show the last couple of weeks here through the off season. And you know where to find me at Real Bob Manning in our Garden Report programs. It was some good stuff from Brad Stevens today. Yep. So we'll be back next week. We'll have another guest, and make sure you subscribe to Dome Theory on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, all those different places. Thanks to Jake Weingarten too. Can't forget his insight here. Yep. He was having some phone issues, so he dropped out. You can find him at Jake Weingarten, Weingarten, for all your recruiting news and just basketball at every level. He's really been on the rise the last couple of years, just breaking recruiting news and stuff like that. So we'll see you next week. Dome Theory, Bobby Manning. Stay well.